The best soundbars are excellent for people who have invested in big screen TV, realize that TV speakers just don't deliver the same level of immersion, audio-wise, as the visuals. These speakers have been growing massively in popularity in the last few years, especially because they don't take up as much space as a 3 to 7-piece speaker system. In addition, during the cost of living crunch, a soundbar can be much cheaper than a whole new set. Number 1. Samsung HW-Q930B. Samsung's best flagship soundbars are great things, but its slightly less expensive models haven't always been quite so brilliant. This one bucks the trend, not least because it includes the rear speakers that previous models didn't. That makes an enormous difference to the soundstage, and with both Dolby Atmos and DTS X decoding, it delivers extremely impressive and immersive audio in movies and TV shows. The HDMI loop-through supports the HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision HDR formats, as well as 4K resolution at frame rates of up to 60 Hz. There's no support for the 4K/120 Hz or variable refresh rate. VRR features now delivered by the PS5, Xbox Series X or high-end PC. But the same is true of almost all other current soundbars too. The soundbar also supports Q Symphony and compatible Samsung TV, intelligently pairing its speakers with those of the TV to provide a bigger soundstage. This soundbar isn't ideal for music, but it absolutely excels in home cinema. It's the most immersive sub-4-figure soundbar we've ever heard. That's quite the statement when the top-tier Q990B was so impressive. But the savings to make here will be best matched for most people looking for an epic surround system with little compromise. If you're mad about movies, this is the best soundbar that won't break the bank. Number 2. Sony HT-G700. We think the Sony HT-G700 hits an excellent sweet spot for features, price, and the scale of its sound. It's a soundbar and wireless subwoofer combo, and the soundbar is a good size for TV of 48 inches and up. As we've come to expect from Sony, there's more to this soundbar than just stereo. As good as that is, it supports both the Dolby Atmos and DTS X Elite surround sound formats, which is not something guaranteed in even more high-end soundbars. And Sony uses its excellent sound processing and acoustic wizardry to create a real wall of sound that stretches way beyond the limits of your TV screen. But with convincing positioning and direction of specific sounds, it might not be quite as good as the Sonos, but it's definitely up there. Sony hasn't forgotten about the basics, though. The subwoofer gives it depth and bass that something like the Sonos Arc can't match on its own, and speech is really clear even in busy action soundtracks, and that's without the speech boosting mode turned on. Downsides: there aren't any dedicated up-firing channels, so we found the Atmos performance a little lacking compared to our Sony AV amp with its dedicated Atmos speakers. And if we're being really picky, we'd say that it's also slightly less dynamic for sudden explosions and swelling soundtracks than the likes of the Sonos Arc or Samsung HW-Q800A. But it's a lot cheaper than either, so for the price, it's the most cinematic experience you can get. Number 3. Sonos Arc. Sonos has managed to cram an entire surround sound solution into its Arc soundbar. It isn't cheap, but if you're already a fan of Sonos, then we think you're going to love the way this soundbar delivers really impressive surround sound. The Sonos Arc draws on Dolby's latest True HD and Dolby Digital Plus sound codecs to deliver the best quality lossless audio found on cutting-edge Blu-ray discs in some of the leading streaming services. It then enhances the 3D soundscape using Dolby Atmos object tracks to bounce certain sounds off the walls around you so they feel like they are coming at you from all angles. We thought the effect was pretty convincing in our tests, and while it's not as immersive as overhead speakers mounted on your ceiling, it's a lot easier to install. We also like the simple setup, which involved just a couple of steps on the smartphone app, and as you'd expect, it's easy to hook it up to other Sonos speakers. The minimalist cable connections and all-in-one system construction add to this no-fuss feeling and streamlined aesthetic, making it the best Dolby Atmos soundbar you can buy in 2022. Number 4. Sonos Ray. Sonos impresses at the cheaper end as well as the higher end. With the Ray, its smallest and least expensive soundbar, the sound is an immediate and clear upgrade for the older or cheaper TV that it's aimed at. We tested it with a mid-range Sony set from a few years ago, and the dialogue was clearer. Movie scores had more life and drama, and it even delivers a good amount of bass for impactful explosions in action movies. Compared to built-in speakers of the 32 to 50-inch TV it's aimed at, there's no competition. It's a huge improvement. Of course, it's not as strong as the larger soundbars here. It doesn't offer the expansive width and height to audio that the Sony HT-G700 above does, nor is it as good with positioning sounds precisely in space. and it's simply less dynamic overall. But that's okay, because it's not made for people who are reaching for the most cinematic experience they can get. It's made for people who just want bigger and fuller movie sound, with more understandable speech. And it's a full Sonos wireless speaker, so it's much better with music than most soundbars, including the Sony HT-G700. One thing to know is that it only uses optical digital for its connection, no HDMI ARC. This means it may need to learn your remote control signals before it works, but Sonos has made that part of the setup process, so it's pretty much foolproof. Number 5. Samsung HW-Q990B. The Samsung HW-Q990B is the high-end Dolby Atmos soundbar system from Samsung's 2022 range, and it's essentially the upgraded version of the Samsung HW-Q950 above. Like the HW-Q950A, it delivers 11.14 channels of audio that it directs around and above, delivered from a combination of soundbar, subwoofer, and 2 wireless rear speaker units. But it's made some refinements from the previous model. A new acoustic lens on the subwoofer diffuses the sound better around the room. The rear speakers have been redesigned to better help the precision of the up-firing drivers. There's now space-fit automatic room compensation to help maintain detail in the sound as it reflects around, and the sound has generally been tweaked and re-engineered. And the result is that, in the words of our review, the Q990B creates the most fully rounded and immersive surround sound experience we've ever heard from even the best Dolby Atmos soundbars. The way it steers parts of movie round around and right above you is unparalleled. It's so really big and fulsome in its sound, without being overly heavy. It's a heavy sledgehammer and a deft fountain pen, depending on the need. Number 6. Samsung HW-Q800A. Don't have space for rear speakers and don't want to spend too much money? The Samsung Q800 is a superb package for getting Dolby Atmos sound that you can really feel without putting a big dent in your wallet. It's not too big either. We recommend it for TV of 48 inches and up. One of the reasons we like this soundbar so much is because it has actual up-firing drivers. That means it can deliver more convincing Atmos height than soundbars without up-firing speakers, and we found that the horizontal soundstage was nice and wide too. And in some impressively meaty bass, and you've got the ideal home entertainment experience without having to fill your room with hardware. There are some useful tricks for new Samsung TV owners too. You can combine it with the sound optimization features of the new Q70 or higher Samsung TV, enabling you to get an even bigger and clearer sound. Don't worry if you don't have those TV, though. We think the Q800 is more than good enough to stand on its own. It provides you with room-filling sound that's wonderfully immersive. It's precise, powerful, and dynamic enough to ensure that you feel the full weight of every one of its available 3.12 channels. And as an added bonus, you can add wireless rear speakers later if you're ready to upgrade.